Here I'm going to demonstrate my favorite finish for wood carving and sculpture. It is Watco Danish oil. I'm using natural oil. You can get it in stains, which sometimes I use, but I prefer natural, and showing the natural beauty of the wood. It's going to finish with a low sheen, no gloss. A couple valuable tools for this. I've experimented with lots of finishes over the years, and this is by far my favorite. Although there are plenty of others that work, but this is easy. It's natural based, and I do protect my hands with rubber gloves. But this finish, it stains, seals, and protects the wood. It actually soaks in the wood. And so I'm finishing a piece here. I poured the Danish oil in a little tin can, just a tuna can. I've got a disposable brush, and you also want to have rags for wiping clean and polishing, as well as I like to use a fine grit wet dry sandpaper. This is 600 grit waterproof sandpaper. So I'm actually going to flood the surface of the wood, especially the end grain, and so I let the oil absorb into the wood. In fact, I keep putting more and more oil on the surface so that it will absorb lots of oil in the first coat. Now this is finishing a little bit darker than the top. I actually carved this in two pieces, and this is a red-breasted nuthatch, which I made here, and I finished it back here. But I'm going to put more oil on here, and it's okay, it's lighter, because I have all kinds of bark inclusions in this piece, and I'm going to join the forms. Other videos I showed how I carve it, but this one's going to be just how I finish. So I want to kind of match the pieces, even though this isn't from the same tree. These are both oak, and a little contrast is good, as long as it picks up some colors. I try to just think about the whole composition of the piece. So when you add oil, it darkens the wood. Okay, darkens it real well, and it's going to create a nice contrast. I'll leave some of the sapwood, the lighter wood, a little bit lighter. This piece has been weathered by nature, but I've also carved and sanded a good bit of it. And I've shown lots of techniques in my videos and tricks and how I sand, also how I find wood. And that's a lot of fun. I tell them it's a dance with nature. I find pieces in the woods, and I enjoy embellishing them and having natural subjects, my birds and animals and flowers coming out of the pieces of wood. Look how beautiful that grain's showing there. This is sanded to 600 grit and polished before I put the Danish oil on. I'm going to let it keep absorbing, and then I'm going to put this piece aside because I don't want oil to get on that bird. And you should mount, you should oil your birds before mounting. But in this case, I already have it mounted, and I decided I want to elevate the composition and add another nuthatch. And stay tuned to see that video, because it's gonna be a really neat piece. But I'm just adding more oil to darken it, because I can see how the base is really getting dark with oil. I'm getting close here, just trying to soak that. Even though I've oiled it before, I went back and sanded some parts because I wanted it more modified and less just natural from nature. Oil the back of the piece here a little bit. Just apply a liberal amount of this Danish oil. It'll again stain it to a certain degree by darkening it, and seals the wood and just protects it. It has waxes in the oil itself, and it's just a really nice low sheen finish. And I'm going to polish this to a luster. Okay, what I mean is I'm going to use this 600 grit sandpaper, and I'm going to put it and just rub it with circles while that wood is still on top of the surface. And it wants to absorb in the end grain especially. this is I usually allow about an hour for this because the oil will set up. I got to start working on the base because I put that on first to see the color of the wood. But I think it's matching up pretty good. And I'm not sure if you can see that real well here. And I'm going to try to get a different angle for you. A little bit lower here so you can see the whole piece there in the Danish oil. Sassafras has one coat here too, and I'm gonna start oiling that here a little bit. So I'm just flooding the surface, and I'm gonna put this aside over here a little bit more so that I can work on the base, and then I'll start sanding out some more. And you can look at the wood to see if it needs more oil. If it starts to not have that higher gloss sheen, now it's going to dry to a low, not a gloss, but when you put it on, it looks glossy. It looks good, but I don't like that polyurethane look. To me, it looks fake, and this looks more natural. You can see the beauty of the wood. And I'm not big into using harmful chemicals and a lot of resins and stuff to get a nice finish. I used to use tung oil mixed with beeswax, and that works. That's also a very nice finish. It's natural, but I found this Danish oil works really well. And you can use all kinds of oils actually for finishing, and there's all kinds of finishes out there. But this is found. I think I got it at Woodcraft. I'm not sure which store, but you have to use. You might be able to find it like at the Home Depot, probably in a small can. I think they have it, but a big can like this is a gallon. This is what I need because I go through the oil quite a bit, finishing these bases. But you'd have to go to a specialty store like Woodcraft. So make sure you can see this real good. Look how the bark inclusion is looking really cool and showing that grain. So yeah, so this is not the least expensive finish, and I just love it. I will sometimes put I will do multiple coats because one coat's usually not enough, and I will also sometimes put wax over it and polish the wax. Just like I have videos on that too. There's different kind of waxes that you can polish. Now this wood's already been polished. It's sanded really finely, although I've left some rough areas in here. I just like showing the wood as it comes from nature, because again, I'm going to have a pair of those nuthatches, which is a small type of woodpecker, and they are going to be perched on here, so I wanted to make it look natural, like habitat for them to live in. Although I've sculpted it, so it's kind of a dance between nature and what I find sculpted by nature and what I carve and manipulate. So this is looking pretty good. I can see the end grain, especially got to put more oil on. Yeah, right around there and up here. And I like to do the bottom of the piece too, because when collectors look at my work, they want to see the whole thing finished. I sign my work. Some of the bark separation and collusion was coming off a little bit on this piece of oak, so I did use a little bit of epoxy and epoxied it down. I don't like using harmful chemicals, but I got to make sure that the piece is going to last. And this Danish oil definitely is helping the piece last. So there's the bottom of the piece. It's a hollow. In fact, I'm going to add a little bit of the oil inside it too. Make it dark and look more finished. So there's the bottom. Here's the concave areas, make it dark. This could be a nest or something for the nuthatch. Just having fun with what nature gives me. Yeah, I spent a lot of time looking for these pieces. along lakes and rivers, along beaches and forests, all kinds of areas. But this was most likely from the woods, a stump. It's a hollow stump. Now let's see how it looks with the top form. And I'm going to probably add a little more oil to it, add a little more oil here, and then start sanding it up here. Sometimes I work on all the pieces here, but it is time consuming. So I don't want this, especially if it's been a long time on this piece. I want to make sure that it I can sand it, get a really fine grit. The first time I put the oil finish on, I actually missed some spots, and it missed sanding and rubbing them out, and they did dry a little bit, not glossy, but not consistent. It wasn't smooth to the touch. I like a piece that's really smooth to touch afterwards. Okay, so I'm just adding a little more oil. I can see, yeah, it needs more, and I want to make sure these pieces look good next to each other. So that's why I'm oiling them both at the same time. So I'm going to join them afterwards, and I'll show you that process. I'll show you a little different angle here. Show the whole thing. There we go. Yeah, I'm going to oil these pieces. This piece, I'm going to actually pin it together afterwards, and then add the other nut hatch here. So stay tuned for that video, because I think it's going to look really good. And I really appreciate you following me. If you find value in this video, please please like the video and comment. It'd be nice. But additionally, subscribing to my channel really helps me with my support and the growing of my channel. I've gained some good number of followers recently, and the more I gain, the more information I'm going to share. And I mean, I've been sculpting all my life, and I have no secrets. So I'll be glad to help with anything you'd like. Just hit a comment there. I also teach classes via Zoom, and this is just a very fun process. So I'm going to sand this up here a little bit. Probably want to take this, move it over, so I don't get any oil in that bird. And then after I sand, I'm going to polish with the cloth. So it's just a matter of working it. I like going in circles with the grain. Usually going with the grain is going away from the piece. But the advantage of this wet dry sandpaper is you can sand the oil in the wood and create some heat. And it really, with some friction there, it really gets a nice luster. But you have to spend some time and really just hand rubbing it in. So this is a hand rubbed finish, not a sprayed or lacquer finish. There's many kinds of finishes, and those are usually faster and maybe even more affordable, but they don't have the luster of Danish oil. I've got some acorns falling from the trees. Speaking of which, the top of the piece, the back of it, kind of looks like an acorn. I don't know if you can see that real well. Sand that a little bit more, and then I'll show you how I polish it. I'm getting really close here. You can buy auto body, you can buy sandpaper like this from auto body stores because it's wet dry sandpaper, waterproof, and it does break apart a little bit. I've even sanded higher than this. This is just 600. But this is a little bit of a rustic finish with the bird here. Okay, see, take a look how that's looking here. I'm going to give a little close-ups here because I'm going to start to hand rub the finish on the bird with the Danish oil. So I'll demonstrate that. Last but not least, so it does look a little bit glossy. I forgot to sand, yeah, some of these pieces in here. That's not going to be so accessible to touch, but the top parts will be. And so the last thing I do is take just a old t-shirt, rag. It's got to be soft though. Soft cotton's what I prefer. And then I will buff it, again, kind of in circles. You want to do this within an hour's time, because it will start to set up depending on, it really depends on the heat of the day and humidity. There's many variables, but you got time. You can do this. I could do all the pieces at once, but that's working really fast, and I sometimes I do that to save time. But this is a big piece, and I just don't want to damage it. If you watched another video on my sanding tricks, I actually dropped it, and but I fixed it, and I'll show another video how I did that and how it looks, because I made a nice stone base so it's not going to fall again. And I did add on to the bill to the heron. Okay, so this nuthatch is looking pretty good. Remember, these are two kinds of different walnuts here. It's very dark, but it's going to work for these forms because the birds, it's going to contrast with the birds being lighter. And there's some grays in the birds, and yeah, I like the bark inclusion. I think it's pretty cool. It's giving some different character. Otherwise, it would be much lighter. If I carved the bark away, the base would be much lighter than the top form. And it's basically dark a lot of times because it's it's just been weathered by nature. So I'm going to put this aside. So that's basically how you do it. You just rub it in there, first with the sandpaper and then with the soft towel. You're kind of wiping the excess off, although most of it absorbed in there. I can see that I need to sand this a little bit more. And then I'll go back. That's just a spot sanding. I'll go back and buff. You can also polish after it dries with a cotton wheel, and that sometimes gives a nice luster as well. So thanks for following me and supporting my page and subscribing and liking this video. I hope you enjoy it and learn something. If you add value to it, if you find that you're finding value to it, please watch some other videos. Thanks a lot for subscribing.